All right, we're live.
All right, it's Thursday afternoon. Time for Joey and Jason's live training of the week. Joey, how you doing, buddy?
Oh, amazing, man. I love these Thursdays. I love being able to just kind of break stuff down with you, pick your brain a little bit. So we're back with another one.
Yeah, man, I'm excited. So we're coming off of our second mastermind. I know some people will watch this out in the future, but last weekend we had a mastermind. It got me, Joey and I, to talking about mindset and momentum. So beyond just the course, beyond FitBiz University, what are we doing and what do we recommend that people can do to just keep their mindset strong, level themselves up as entrepreneurs and leaders, and stay in momentum? Does that sound like, I know that's one of your favorite topics.
Yeah, man, because there's all the strategies and tactics in the world. But at the end of the day, like, you got to get up when the alarm goes off and you got to get after it every day. And
Right.
so, like, sometimes it's easier to do that than other times. And I think now is a good opportunity for us to share the stuff that works for us, like different tactics and like what a normal day looks like, and like what we do to continue that, feeding that entrepreneurial spirit. And hopefully we can share some nuggets with you guys that can, keep you guys going too.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. So let's just start off with that. I think you hit the nail on the head. Like, in a given month, what are you doing? How are you keeping yourself moving forward? How do you keep yourself leveling up? I mean, I know that, I won't say it for me, you won't say it for you, but I'll say it for Joey. Joey's been a really successful guy over the last, 8 years that he's owned a gym, and particularly the last few years. And so what do you do to keep yourself hungry and moving forward? Are there some high level tips or?
You know, you do jujitsu, right?
I do, yeah.
So I'm always trying to improve my position, right? And it's kind of like that. Jujitsu has the same thing, but I'm never comfortable like with where I'm at, and I'm always finding a way to improve that position. And I think that keeps you hungry, because if you sit back and you're like, yeah, man, I'm where I want to be, that's the fastest way to get out of momentum and just become complacent. So I'm big on setting goals, and then charting a map on how I can reach those goals. So we talked about this at the mastermind, but I have just ongoing lists of things that like I need to check off, right? And these ultimately lead up to long-term goals that I want to accomplish. And I've just gotten better at it in time, like with essentially knowing what I can do, what I'm capable of doing, and in a time frame. So I'm not like, build a $10 million company in the next 6 months. Like you get better at. When I first started doing this, I was like super aggressive, and then you don't accomplish it, and you're kind of like, So like, I mean, if you have a hard time getting shit done, like, start off your list, if you make one, with very simple stuff, like freaking make the bet on that thing for one. You know what I mean? Like, just get used to checking stuff off. Like, get used to, at the end of the day, you accomplished everything, even if there's only 4 things on there. And that's kind of how I've accomplished a lot of the things that I have is not looking at standing at the bottom of the mountain and looking all the way up. It's just, what's right in front of you, and those ultimately will lead you somewhere. But what about you, man? Like, what's your normal thing look like?
I think this is, I'm so serious. I know I'm always excited about these, but like, this is one of my favorite conversations we're going to have. Like, first of all, because it's not a content piece, like, I feel like this is even just more pure a conversation between the two of us.
Because we haven't talked about it either, really.
We haven't talked about it. And I think I was telling Donna this, after the mastermind, and even this morning in preparation for this call, I think one of the great things about you and I is we have like similar outcomes, but we have like very different ways of getting there. And in some ways they're very similar, right? But like for me, I got advice pretty early on to try to fill my day doing things that I loved that gave me energy, right? And so my version of that is what I've done over the last, I'd say 5 or 6 years where I've really leaned in on growth, is like, I always want to learn new things. And so I try to go with the current that takes me towards the thing that I want to learn. And I've been very fortunate where it literally put me in the chair that I'm sitting in right now talking to you. So like, literally, as a gym owner, there was a time, and I think a lot of people watching this will feel this, there was a time where it was like, do I become a subject matter expert, like a really high level coach for personal training or for fitness? Or do I start to focus more on the entrepreneur stuff and work with gym owners and things like that? And I think for me, what always drew me was like, the book that I would pick to read would be more focused on entrepreneurialism. The book that I would pick to read would be on, mindset and leadership and things like that. And I just less and less found myself, picking up new and better ways to squat or to program and things. I certainly have done those things. But for me, my guide has really been kind of the current of my own interest. And so to where I have a whole whiteboard right next to me full of lists. It's not that I don't do that, but like comparatively, my thing has always been like, I try to go where my interest is. And so honestly, like I walk through my day now and I just stick with that mantra. And I walk through my day now, like excited about the next thing I'm going to do. And of course, there's always going to be things that I have to do that are not, that I'm not necessarily jazzed about. But for instance, the great example is everybody watching this has been on calls with me. Man, I leave calls with other gym owners with like, I'm a chatterbox. I got more energy than when the call started, whether it's a good call or whether even if I get on the phone with somebody where there's something maybe not going so well, like I feel like I'm pulled to help those people. And so for me, to use your mountain metaphor, like when I stand at the base of the mountain, I take the path that it just interests me, right? And I always want to be getting better and better and moving forward, but it's based on, I let my guide be sort of what pulls me. Does that make sense?
Yeah, man, it does. And I know that's how you are just based on your personality. And I can totally see it. And I see how that works so well for you,
Yeah.
So I think the lesson is, don't fight, how you are naturally to try to emulate someone else. Like how you are can get you to great heights, just follow that. Like if I tried, going about things the way that you do, I might be frustrated because it's not exactly how I do things, and vice versa. You might be like, one more freaking list. Like I don't want to do this. You know what I mean? And so like, if you're watching this, you don't have to do things the way I do it or the way Jason does it, but just what feels good for you, and then hold yourself to that standard,
Yeah, no, definitely. And maybe my question for you, just kind of before we move on, would be like, what do you think gave you, is there something you can point to, whether when you were a kid, or I know we were both in the Army, what do you think gave you the desire, or what gives you the motivation to like achieve, to like go and progress more? And like, because I know that you're somebody who, like, I've watched you in different settings now, like start here and I watch you systematically progress and improve. Do you feel like that was just in you forever, or do you feel like that was given to you in some experience or from a person?
Yeah, I mean, I've always wanted to be the best at whatever I'm doing. It's just, I'm very, very competitive, right? And so, and it depends on the setting, but I don't see any reason why I can't be the best at what I'm trying to do in any subject, right? And also, like, my goals go far beyond, helping gym owners in this area. It's something I'm always going to do and I'm always passionate about, but I have big ambitions of doing things with my life and, giving back to people that don't have all the advantages that we have. And some of those are going to be big undertakings. And so I need to be able to get stuff done quickly now because I need my time later. And so that's typically why I move so fast, is because like I want to be in the position to do some of those things with 40 years of my life left, and so I think now, in order to get the resources to be able to do those things, I need to move quick. So it's kind of a catch-22. Is like I'm competitive, so I'm able to, when I think of something, I need to get it done as quickly as I can. And we'll talk more about like why that is, for me at least. But that's why you've seen, growth for me personally. Is it just a combination of all of those things? Is I'm extremely impatient. It's just how I've always been. So I just have this constant sense of urgency, right? Which does have its cons too. Like I might be a little bit more, stressed or anxious or something like that than a normal person that's just kind of like, well, things will happen when they happen. But on the good side of it, I'm able to accomplish things quickly, right? And so it's kind of a trade-off there.
Well, and I think too that when you condition yourself through using like good entrepreneurial strategy, like if you solve a problem and it stays solved, then it makes sense to want to solve problems quickly because you're somebody who has a track record of like, oh, we wanted to set up, semi-private. So I solved that problem. I worked really hard on it and then it worked. And so like, yeah, why wouldn't you
I don't
want
want to do it again, and I don't have
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
You know,
100%. I couldn't agree with that more. You said something about, not seeing a reason why you couldn't succeed in the ways that others had. And I remember the day I had just gotten back from the Army. I moved to Chicago and I was there by myself. I didn't live with anybody yet or anything. I was just there by myself. I remember stepping out onto a busy city street and I just looked that way and I looked that way and I saw all these businesses with stores and storefronts. And I had come from the Army, which without going super deep, it's like, it's basically communism. Like there isn't a lot of opportunities to do your own thing or do whatever, right? You follow the orders. And so from that mindset, I remember looking and I was like, I don't know what that florist does, but they can pay rent in that space and pay for their own rent. If they can do it, I can do it. And that bar and that restaurant and that clothing store and that this and that gym and that this, like I didn't even, that was 2 years before I even opened a gym. And I just remember very distinctly being like, if another person can do it, then I can do it if I put my mind to it. Does that make sense?
yeah, I think a lot of the people watching have that exact same character trait. But the cool thing is, like, we're in this bubble of uncommon people, right? And so, because like the majority of the population, they don't feel that way. I mean, you talk to so many people and you can tell like they're very risk adverse. And usually that has to do with their own self-confidence, right? Because if you are 100% sure on yourself, you just pretty much do whatever your gut says, right? If you're not, then you're very risk adverse, which is what most people are. So I love working with entrepreneurs because I feel like I'm with my people, and everywhere else I kind of feel out of place. Like when you're at a party or a wedding or something, you're talking to everybody and they're like, yeah, so I work here and I do this, and in 20 years I'll be able to retire and I have this much attributed here. And I'm just like, ugh, like I don't like you know what I mean? Like I'm like,
yeah, I do.
I'm trying to work 4-hour fucking weeks here. Like I don't have anything in common with you guys. Like I'm not motivated on the same stuff you are. Like that kind of job that you're so pumped about, like makes my skin itch. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
so, but that's the majority. And I feel like really, but when I'm talking to gym owners and I'm with you guys, like I feel so comfortable because it's like, well, yeah, let's do that thing. Let's throw $10,000 on, Facebook ads next month because we're sure of ourselves, right? Whereas most people, the way they would invest money is something that might give them a marginal return in the course of 10 years, right? Whereas I'm like, no, I believe in myself. And so I bet you I can triple my money by the end of the month if I put it towards my business, which I created, that I can sell the training for. I can triple my money. I'm not talking about a 10% increase in 10 years. I'm talking about a 300% increase in 30 days. And most people they can't rationalize something like that. But the people in our tribe can, and that's what's exciting,
Yeah, and to your point, like these are our people. Like, you go to a mastermind and I'll tell you right now, like my career doing this with FitBiz and with you as my partner, like all of it is worth it. Even if I don't know if I would do it day in and day out for no money, but like just to be around other people. I plan on talking about this later, but I love the phrase, you are the combination of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And this is an outlet for me to surround myself with people who see nothing and create something where before there was nothing. Where people where they see a problem and all they care about is how are we going to solve this? They don't worry about the problem. They worry about the solution, right? And so for me, like genuinely, I just talked about this. I only fill my day doing things that I'm passionate and care about. And the reason I'm passionate about working with gym owners is to give back to them, but also it's to keep me swimming with sharks. I want to be in a pit of vipers. I want to be around a lot of people who are challenging themselves to grow. Sam told us about one of his core values is lobster mode. And I just love that idea of like a lobster grows to fit the size of its shell. And it's the pressure of trying to fill that container that is making progress. And I'm sure I'm butchering that a little bit, but my idea is this, like, okay, if I'm able to learn how to walk, motherfucker, let's run. If I'm able to learn how to run, let's play a sport. If I'm great at a sport, let's go pro. Like, I want to always feel like there's another thing to go and grow into, like we said with lobster mode. And so for me, surrounding myself, there's no better use of my time than 48 hours at a mastermind, right?
Yeah.
Even hosting one, I come back, amped up and ready to go. I don't know if you can tell that I'm amped up and ready to go.
I mean, without a doubt, like if you are constantly hanging out with like deadbeats, their character traits are going to rub off on you. There's no sense of urgency. Typically, there's no like setting goals to be a high achiever there. And so like, why would you want to do any of that? Like, life is easy, right?
Yeah.
But if you're around you're, the most common people you're around are high achievers, high performers, the way they think, talk, act, all of that's going to rub off on you, and you just start doing that because it's just something that how the body, it's a phenomenon of like just being human. And so it's like when you acclimate to a cult. If you were to move to a different culture, all of these things subconsciously start like affecting you, the way that you speak, all sorts of things. Well, it's the same thing with who you surround yourself with. So even if you've heard that phrase but thought it was just whatever, I can tell you from the majority of the people that I've met that are successful, they're very guarded with who they spend the majority of their time with, to be honest, because they know the impact that it has, whether they want it to or not.
Yeah, I want to get tactical and start to talk about some habits and some things that we recommend. But first, and again, I was going to talk about this later, but kind of came up organically, is I came up with a little exercise that I recommend everybody does. And you can do this regularly. And that would be, who are the 5 people that you're spending the most of your time with, right? And if you've got 4 kids, like, I would probably just skip the closest family, right? But who are the 5 people that you're spending the most time with? But also, what are the 5 information sources or entertainment sources that you're spending your time with? Because one thing is that I've noticed is when I'm in momentum, when I'm moving forward all the time, I'm naturally drawn to moving out of my comfort zone. Sometimes that's in the form of reading, and we'll talk tactically about, more specifics, but like in the form of reading books around my subject matter, like entrepreneurialism, fitness, things like that. Sometimes it's podcasts, sometimes it's documentaries and movies. But what it isn't is, reading trashy news about entertainment. It's not watching reality TV. It's not fucking stuff like that. It's not, I know what's going on with politics. I know right now is kind of a political time, but I can tell you right now, every moment that I spend with that makes my skin crawl, right? Like, I'd much rather be focused on, improving. So so what I would recommend to kind of close the loop on that is write down what do you spend, the top 5 people you spend your time with, and really look at, what do you spend your free time doing? What are the top 5 sources of either entertainment or information that you're using? And are there better ways for you to be doing that you would love, right?
Yeah, 100%. That's important.
Yeah, I agree. So let's get a little more tactical. So, I think I read somewhere that the average CEO reads, 1 or 2 books a month. Are you reading books regularly? And if so, what's the format that you prefer?
Yeah, so I definitely read. I don't have a 1 or 2 books a month, but I read 30 to 60 minutes a day. So whatever that ends up being, sometimes it's 4 books a month if I choose shorter books. Sometimes like the one I'm working my way through now, which you recommended, which is Atlas Shrugged. I think it's like a 36-hour book. It's extremely long, and so it might take me 2 months to get through it, right, at a pretty high pace. But it's part of my routine, right? Is consuming information, and it's not always like business books or very rarely do I read like self-help books. Not that I don't like them, I do like them, but I like to have more of a character in a type of story than direct advice from the author, right? So I prefer Audible books only because I can listen to the book while I'm commuting or while I'm doing something else. Whereas reading, and if I do read, it's typically a Kindle. I don't do paperback pretty much ever anymore because I just like the functionality of how a Kindle works. But I have to be pretty much only doing that, right? I can't be I don't exercise like I like sitting on a spin bike or something where I can just, that's not how I work out, right? So I like to do two things at once. So typically it's always Audible. But if it's not available on Audible, like some ones are, I just read one with from Branson, CEO of Virgin. It's not Richard Branson. It's not available on Audible. So I read that one, and it was great. So
Yeah.
what about you?
Yeah, so very similar. I'm always, so I have gone in spurts, and when I look back, the times when I'm not reading books, I am a little bit less in momentum. Now, what I will say is I have a theory that, because I grew up listening to talk radio, which turned into podcasts, right? So I grew up, I would go to sleep and listen to talk radio every night. So I've always loved talk and things like that. So I'll listen to podcasts, I mean, genuinely 40 hours a week if I have an opportunity to.
So you
So
like podcasts a lot.
I love podcasts, but I think podcasts are magazines and I think audiobooks are books. And what I mean by that is a podcast, it's great. They kind of they go with a shallow dive across broad things. And I do pick podcasts that are useful and informational, but they're usually not super deep. It's kind of the why and the what, but not as much of the how. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like we talked about with the Facebook group. And so for me, what I've found is if I'm just listening to like Rogan or I'm just listening to just podcasts, like I'm usually not as productive. So what I'll end up doing is I'll use podcasts as a springboard into the book. And so I'll listen to somebody that I'm interested in on a podcast, and then I'll read their book. And so that's how I get my new book recommendations most of the time. Yeah, exactly. And by the way, you alluded to it, but Joey and I have read, I think 3 or 4 books this year that we both read at a similar time to kind of challenge each other to keep moving forward.
Yeah, exactly. Like I think I heard, I think I watched Tim Ferriss on Joe Rogan, and then I started reading into Tim Ferriss, and I really liked them. Tools of Titans and 4-Hour Work Week and all that stuff. And they're great. So like, otherwise I hadn't really heard of them before. But I don't get into podcasts. I think because you only have a certain amount of time, right, to dedicate towards that. And my favorite is books. So I can see how it works both ways.
Yeah, and then so moving on, so books is one tactical thing. Look, if you're listening to this and you're not somebody who likes books, or you're somebody who doesn't like audiobooks, like my sister won't touch an audiobook, fine, read a paper book. But if you're somebody who doesn't typically read books, what I would challenge you is there are books out there for anybody. Okay. And one of the things that I've found is I get better as a business owner and as a gym owner when I read a book about woodworking, or when I read a book that's a novel about a charismatic character. There's certainly lists.
That's what I mean. It's like the character, and it attracts you, because you get caught up in it.
Yeah. And so what I would say is I found in the last couple of years, for the first probably 5 or 6 years of being an entrepreneur, it was like nonstop. Yeah, Tim Ferriss, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I'm reading all of the different sales books, all the different business books. And I'll be honest with you, and I had a finance degree, I had a business degree, but I will be honest with you, I've gotten in some cases, I've gotten more from a novel or a book. I read a book about Native Americans that, totally opened my eyes. Just, there's an old samurai saying that once you learn the way once, you can learn the way across anything. In other words, if you're an unbelievable swordsman, you can be an unbelievable gym owner or an unbelievable woodworker or whatever it is. And so what I think is, for that person listening who maybe isn't drawn to listen to a Tim Ferriss book, I would love to talk to you for 5 minutes and correct that. But let's just say, then whatever it is that you're interested in, whether it's learning a new skill or reading a novel that's worthwhile, not too schlocky, like do that, because what it does is it makes you think in a different way, and puts you in the story a little more than if you were just watching TV or something like that.
Yeah. Another tactic too is summaries. There's a ton of book summaries on Audible. So I mean, it's somebody basically giving you a 6-7 hour book in 30 minutes, right? Now, of course, it's going to leave out a ton, but it gets you into the routine of consuming information over that medium. And then it'll be easier to do an hour, 2 hours. And next thing you know, you're doing these long novels, because the longer a book, the more you typically get out of it, right? Because it's able to articulate whatever the author's message is, much more clearly. and reinforce it in a lot of different ways, the longer it is. Whereas if it's how much can you get across in 30 minutes? Well, at least you get the points of it, right?
Yeah. And then another thing too that I want to circle back on is, my best friend and the person who I respect probably most in the world, like him and his wife watch YouTube videos instead of TV at night. And what they'll do, like he's in real estate, he's a real estate investor. And what he does is he'll literally it's kind of the opposite of podcasts. Now it's like super deep dive tactical. Like we're going to spend 15 minutes, but we're going to tell you exactly what to do. 1, 2, 3, 4. And you can sort of anything, whether it's a skill, an aspect of your business, how to model something in a spreadsheet, how to learn a new thing, whatever it is, you can just type that into YouTube. And now there's a hyper-focused step-by-step example of how to do that. And so I think that rounds out learning really well. Like to me now, I feel like a cyborg, because I feel like if I want to learn, I feel like Neo in the Matrix where I can just learn Kung Fu. Because if I want to learn a new skill, I can just Google that particular thing, and then I'll learn the steps for that without having to read the whole book. Does that make sense?
Dude, 100. I do courses, man. So I'm always in some kind of a course. Like right now, I'm doing a Chris Harder course about money. That I'm always doing one of. In fact, it's on my to-do list. Even more so than books is consuming an hour of the course or going through it. Before that, I did the client's community course. I've done. I just do a lot of coursework. I'm always engaged in it. Probably because there's a checklist and I like that, and getting through the information. I always, because you can get them so cheap. I mean, you can get a course for $40 and it's a 12-week course. And if you can pick a couple things out of it, right, and learn it, some of them are not very good. The one I'm going through right now is not very good. But I will complete it because I want to see how it's supposed to end. And that's one of the, if you're listening to this, I learn more from doing courses than anything by far, because it is very, very tactical and applicable, right? And chances are, if you really liked a certain course, that course creator has more than one, right? Especially if they've been doing it for a while. Like I'm going through Chris Harder's course right now about money, and it just basically beliefs about it and things like that, just things that I'm interested in. He's got like 6 or 7 other ones, right? So if I like this one, I would buy the next one, and I could keep myself busy for a year just on his stuff. Well, oh my God, if you start looking into like courses, I mean, there's so many of them out there, right? I typically don't do ones that involve coaching or anything like that, because I'm not looking for that, right? I'm just looking to execute, and typically I would go through it much faster than anyone else would slow me down. But it depends on how serious it is. If it was for my business, well, then yeah, hell yeah, I need a mentor. You know what I mean? Like that's the most serious thing I have. And so then I have a mentor for that, right? But if I'm just trying to gain more knowledge, which is something that you should always be doing, is gaining more knowledge. That's another one that, don't forget about that, because it's a very good way to do it.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because that was the next thing I was going to bring up is certification seminars. Yeah, course certification seminars, like quick hits. So not like a group like ours where I would call that like a mastermind, but like just quick hits. Like, hey, I want to learn more about sales. Boom, hit it. I want to learn more about this. Boom, hit it. Copywriting, whatever it is. And so for me, that's always something on my radar. One thing I notice is I surround myself with people kind of without even thinking about it, that want to talk about these things all the time. Like you were talking about that a little bit. Like I don't, like people always say like, oh, let's not talk business, we're on our off time. Fuck that. Like when I go to a mastermind, or when I'm talking around other people in a course or a seminar that I've gone to, like one of the things you and I hit it off with very quickly was like, yeah, I love being here. I want to talk about business. No, I don't need to talk about sports or the fucking weather, because I can't believe this next thing that I'm going to get to build, or this next thing that we're going to get to do. Another thing we bonded on that I think is applicable here is every time we've been in a course together, and there's been a few different courses that we've done that both of us have taken. It's like, did you watch that video? Yeah, I watched it 3 times. It's like, yeah, we actually do go through those courses, because like you, we do things differently. But like you, if I know there's 10 modules and I'm on module 1 for more than a few days, like I'm like, all right, let's go. I put money into this. Let's like get through it. Like let's learn the new thing and acquire the new skill, right? The way that I have a mindset about courses and certs is You're not paying to watch a video. You're not paying to get on a phone call. And I've probably told people that are watching this now this. You're paying to get the new skill in the Swiss Army knife that's
Yeah,
you
100%.
and your business, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
There's so many analogies that you could use, but like, let's say you like building muscle cars, right? Um, you're paying to get that new cold air intake or something. Like you have this big masterpiece, which is your mind, right, in your body, and you're trying to upgrade that thing, man. That's what you're paying for. Not so. Don't look at watching the videos like a fucking chore. Like that's the knowledge that you're paying for, so you can then have this thing and apply it towards whatever it is you want to apply it towards. I couldn't agree more. Like and what you were talking about before, like talking about sports and what I've always been like that because I just believe in being authentic. You know what I mean? I don't really talk about things I'm not interested in or just for the purpose of small talk. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs are like that, right? Um, at least I am, And so if somebody is like, well, that guy's kind of boring or whatever it may be, I don't care. You know what I mean? Like, because if I'm around the right people, I'm not boring, right? I'm authentic to what I want to talk about or what I find value in.
There was a comedian that wrote a really bad write-up of Dane Cook as a comedian. And he was like, he's bad because of this, he's bad because of that. I don't like him. He's not, it's bullshit. It's not very good. But at the end of it, he goes, just so you know, if me, you, and Dane Cook are at a party, I'm talking to Dane Cook because I have more in common with the comedian than I do with anybody else at that party. And that, I think, the reason I brought that up is I feel that way. Like, I don't care if we don't have all these different things in common, but if I'm at a party, I'd rather talk to any entrepreneur who has that I can see eye to eye with, rather than the most exciting normie. You know what I mean? Like, to me, that always has rung true to me. Like, I would much rather spend time with my least favorite entrepreneur than with, I mean, unless they're a total asshole or something, but you get my point.
100%.
Yeah. So, let's talk a little bit about like mentorship and masterminds, like the bigger version of that courses and seminars. I know we've both put a lot of time, effort, devotion, and money into our own, into other courses and masterminds. Talk to me about the role that has played in your development as an entrepreneur and putting you into momentum.
I think it's important for belief breaking, right? Usually you have to see or hear from somebody that you believe you can accomplish, certain things that break your beliefs. Like if you hold somebody up on a pedestal, it's very difficult for you to think of yourself ever being there, right? So I think the cool thing about in-person masterminds and workshops is it normalizes everybody. You're like, hey, that dude's just like me, you know what I mean? And if he accomplished these big things, there's no reason why you can't either, right? And so that's why I love doing our masterminds at my gym. It's like, dude, I'm just a normal gym owner like the rest of you. Look at my gym. And it's just like your gyms. And you're able to, I'm living the life that I want to right now from this gym, right? And there's no reason why anybody else can't do that. So for me, that in-person stuff is really about breaking beliefs and networking with people that you aspire to become like or have a business like, and normalizing it, right? And that's why I like, and because you can't get that any other way. Some of the ways to the top, there's certain paths and checkpoints that you have to hit along the way, or you're not going to make it there. And I think if you talk to every successful person, at some point, they have reached the level of their mentor or somebody they aspired to be like. The next thing you know, they shot past them. Like the Michael Jordan probably wanted to be like his favorite college, basketball player because he didn't even get to play for the high school team, right? He's like, man, if I could just be as good as that guy one day. And eventually, of course, he shot past him and everybody else. But at some point, he was looking up to somebody and had this guy on a pedestal, like, oh my God, And I think that masterminds, summits, those type of things will help you break your own beliefs in ways that other things can't.
Yeah, because you're going to see somebody right there at the table. Like I love when there's a table full of people, right? You're at the table. It might not even be the head. Like it's one thing for you and I to be doing this, but even just sitting there, this last weekend we had 2 Texas bodybuilding gyms, and watching those 2 like oh, you got that to work? That didn't work for me. And the other person would be like, yeah, I got that to work. I just did this, this, and this. And then that belief just got immediately obliterated because there
Yeah.
is no difference between those two people, right? One of the things that immediately drew me in from my very first mastermind onto this one was I went to the same one twice. And a lot of times you'll see the same people over and over again, or you see them online or whatever it is. And one of the things I took away was I'm in a group, we're talking about what we're gonna do, right? A lot of times in a mastermind. You better believe that the next time we speak, whether it's online or at another gym or whatever, you better believe that I'm going to have more things to tell you. I'm going to have moved the ball. Whereas if there's nobody looking over my shoulder, if the only person I'm talking about business with is my wife, who loves me very much and is always going to be very supportive of me, shout out Donna Skisik, then maybe I get complacent. I get a little bit of tired, or a little bit, yeah, complacent's the right word. But if I know Joey fucking Huber is the guy I'm going to go talk to next Thursday, we're going to have another live. We're going to talk before we're going to catch up. We have our meetings, whatever it is. I'm going to move the football because I know like he's going to have moved the football. And so it's just like, you know, you think about group fitness. It's like, oh, he's not going to put down the kettlebell. I'm not going to put the kettlebell down ever. Right. Same thing here.
Yeah.
Like if I know Joey's, you know, in the tool shed working on some hot new thing, like you better believe I'm going to have a story to tell too. Right. Does that make sense?
Oh, dude, I know so many people that are like that. I even have to like tame that in myself a little bit because sometimes it can get you to like lose focus of priorities. You know what I mean? It's like, no, 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 like,
Yeah.
don't worry about spending time with your kids because someone
Right.
else doesn't have kids and they're still grinding. Like, reprioritize, but 100%. And I love that aspect of the masterminds, especially if you plan to go back to it and you're with those people again, which happens. If people stay in the industry, there's only so many, like you go to ClickFunnels event, you're going to find the same people there every single time. You know what I mean? And so it's great I couldn't agree more with that.
Yeah. So when I started out of college, I mentioned earlier I have a finance degree. I started out of college at the biggest bank in the world, JP Morgan Chase. And one of the things in their corporate culture that they promoted to us in training and like on no uncertain terms was you will ask out basically a senior statesman of some department other than yours every single week for coffee. And it was just accepted. Usually it was Thursdays in the afternoon. You would ask, you know, the person in charge of investment banking or trading or whatever. And they just instilled in us like, look, if you're not doing this, we're going to know that you don't want to be a winner, basically was what they told us. And so I carried that forward. And by the way, so did my best friend who was there with me. I carried that forward into this. Every time I've gone to a mastermind, I have kept in touch with those people. I have 25 different conversations going on with 25 different friends that I've met along the way. And like, I'm not necessarily buying or selling anything from them. We may not go on vacations together. They may never, I might not be in the same groups as them anymore, but I make it my job. Like if I'm sitting at a table or if I'm going to a mastermind or if I'm in a group, I'm trying to make friends with other people. So I guess this is a long-winded way of me saying like, network with your other owners because those are the people that are going to be the most like you. And it's great to just be like, I can reach out. I don't know if Mikey will see this, but I can reach out to Mikey and be like, hey man, what do you think about this? Even though Mikey's in our group, we met in a different situation and we became friends. And so,
Yeah.
it's an opportunity for you to network. So what I call that is like professional friends. Like you should have professional friends that you can reach out to. And my policy is if you cross my mind, I text you right now, like, or message you right now. If for some reason, whatever, Mikey Shields crossed my mind, I'm going to text him right after this. I'm like, hey, Mikey, check out today's thing. I talked about you, right? Something like that. Does that make sense?
Dude, 100%. I still have, I'm in the same boat as you, is where I can message, I'm not going to name drop, but I can message people right now if I have a question about an ad or question about like some kind of tech or something like that, and they're going to get back to me right away because they know that I would do the same for them. And it's good having that Rolodex or that group of people that, you can help each other out with, even if you're not trying to sell them anything, you're not competing with them, you're not whatever, but you left a good impression on them, right? Or they left a good impression on you. So you always feel comfortable like reaching out because that can help you a lot in the business world, man. You can't do everything yourself, and you'll find that whatever leverage you can find to propel yourself forward, it's really important to have, right? And so from not just from a friendship standpoint, but also from like your ability to execute, If someone else knows something that you don't, or is a subject matter that's something you are not, it might just be a quick phone call away for you to be able to get that answer and keep moving forward versus you maybe having to learn it all yourself. And so I've always done that, I think.
One thing I wanted to bring up is, and we talk about this in our more tactical like trainings and stuff, is that we do exactly what we preach. And so like, for instance, I recommend that people have that we sell accountability and somebody that's coaching each of our clients in a high ticket way. That's one of our primary things that we focus on. Well, in the same way, I mean, you better believe I know enough to run a gym, or you and I know enough to coach other gym owners. But both of us still seek mentorship in paid and unpaid ways from outside sources. And I will continue to do so up until the point where I'm like, I don't know, I guess I got to hire like Tony Robbins or Elon Musk. I don't know. Who do you hire next? Like, I would continue to have mentorship in my life. So maybe speak to like, do you have people in your life that are mentors? Have you sought out, things like that?
I do, and I have a few different mentors for different areas of my life that I go to for questions. And typically it's people that have experience already doing what I'm looking to do. If that's the only type of mentor that I'm interested in, right? Because I know they've walked a path, and maybe it's not the exact path that I'm going to walk, but they know what I'm going to encounter, right? And so I do, and I think it's important for anybody to have a mentor. And the only way that you can really see the value is by having somebody that's giving you advice, you're executing on it, and then they're following up with you on that advice. And you see how that feels, and then don't have one for a while. And you'd be like, shit, man, I don't even know what direction I'm going. Like, I don't feel, do you know what I mean? It's like having a guide taking you somewhere, and then all of a sudden they're like, hey, see you later. I'll be back in a year. And then you don't have that guide anymore. Right. Yeah. And so people that don't really probably have a consistent mentor have never had one. And so they don't know what they're missing, type of thing. But talk to a lot of successful people, and you'll find that they all have somebody helping them along the way. Well, of course, I mean, the people watching this they have us, right? Because we've helped you. We've walked the path that you guys are looking to walk, or at least some portion of it, right? And we can just give you our advice and everything that's worked for us. Same with you.
So as we've ascended, as I've ascended, as you've ascended, kind of separately and now together, one of the things I've noticed is it takes more of my own commitment to get me to focus on it. And so, for instance, like, I couldn't have my nutrition coach me through nutrition, right, at $69 a week, let's say, because for me, it's the positioning isn't right. I would literally rather pay more money and have more skin in the game now as an entrepreneur, as somebody who has succeeded where I have, to where, like, when I look for a mentor, like, part of what I'm looking for, and this is kind of a shameless plug, I guess, if you think about it that way, but part of what I'm looking for is it needs to be expensive enough, or it needs to be enough of a commitment of my time or life that I'm going to give a shit about ascending to it. Because it's really easy to find an excuse to, like, oh, I'm just gonna not do this, I'm not gonna do that. And so when somebody asks about price, whether it's to us or even just like friends that are thinking about going in a different direction, I'll be like, well, if you want to get it done faster and better, I would pay double. Because you're gonna care more and you're gonna solve that problem, right? I mean, the lobster's gonna grow to the size of its shell.
Yeah, because you need to give a shit about it, right? And you need to attribute a certain value to it. And sometimes people cannot think anything's important enough unless they pay enough for it, right? And mentorship is the same deal, right? And when you start getting to, I think it naturally can solve itself, because when you start ascending yourself to higher levels of your professional life, the mentors get more expensive, because it's harder and harder to find people that have done what you're looking to do. Yeah. I mean, you want to find a mentor that can help you start a business. While there's a shitload of them, right? And then you have to find a mentor that can help you grow it to 6 figures. Well, there's a little bit less, and then 7 figures. Well, then there's even less of that, and then 8 figures. And then you want to niche down in a certain area. And the next thing you know, you only want to grow this type of business down this sector to this level. And there's like 4 guys in the country that can help you that's ever done that, right? They're going to charge you a lot, but because of that, like, you're going to get so much more out of it, right? And it is the same thing with our program and anybody else's program is like, if you want to get anything out of it, then you have to put in what you expect to get out of it. And there's no shortcuts to anything, man.
Yeah, and you know, another thing too is like what I've found is the people that I really get the most from, like it's not about the money. Like for me personally, as a mentor to people in this group, you know, whether it's through our perfect gym model or the, you know, the inner circle, I will spend any amount of effort and time to help somebody who's really fighting to try and ascend and succeed. And I have mentors like that. I have some mentors that I have paid, and I have some mentors that are just people that have wanted to give back because they see in me the thing that they saw in themselves when they were younger, right? And so to me, I think the way to think about it is, you know, if as long as you are struggling and working to get harder and harder and get better and better, you know, your mentor is going to give a shit. They're going to try to help you up. And so the best way to get the most out of a mentor, or to find even just a mentor in your life, is to just really express earnest effort and interest in succeeding in it and leveling up. You know, you can't hire a mentor or work with a mentor, especially if it's you know, somebody that's donating their time to you, like locally. You can't expect that person to care if you're not doing the things that
They
that
won't care
person
either, because
recommends. Yeah.
people that are mentors, I mean, they might care out of the goodness of their heart, but it's really hard for someone to consistently keep pushing someone else that doesn't want to push themselves.
Yeah. So what do we think as we start to kind of get towards the end of this? Are there any things that we haven't discussed that you regularly are doing or thinking about or challenging yourself with to level up and stay in momentum and growth?
Yeah, so I talked about this a little bit during the mastermind, um, but I don't particularly like to like try to motivate people or pump them up. That's not really my thing as an entrepreneur, as a mentor, as a leader. Um, I do it with the the employees that I lead, but not to like a group of people like my tribe or something like that, because I want to attract people that are intrinsically motivated, right? Like people that are already fired up and ready to go.
Yeah.
Because I'm a tactics guy, I'm a strategy guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't. It's hard to be both, right?
Yeah.
And so like I could say, you know, I could. There's a lot of guys that are very motivational, but the tactics are kind of fluff. You know what I mean? So I won't dig too deep into like how to get yourself motivated and out of bed every morning. I'm assuming that a lot of us already have that drive. But what I can say is that what's something that's worked really well for me my entire life is spending a fair amount of time, and by a fair amount, I would say 10 to 15 minutes every morning, where I just straight visualize my day, and it works very well. At least for the way that my mind processes things, where I'm going through whatever experience I anticipate having, whether it's something happening that day, the entire day, a big event, um, anything, right? Because I think that your mind is much more powerful than, you know, your body is. And so if you already lived that event, you know, pretty detailed in your mind, a dry run, so to speak, by the time you go through it again in real time, it's just you're just that much more confident and quick, because you already know what to anticipate, and successful, right? You've seen yourself already succeed, and I think there's some kind of mental memory there. So for me, visualizing is very, very important. People meditate, right, in the morning. This is like, in my mind, the tactical way to meditate. You know what I mean? Where I'm not just trying to, you know, nothing wrong with meditating, right? But it just doesn't work for my mind. I've tried a million times. Oh my God, I've tried so much. I want to think about things and accomplish them. I don't want to just observe my thoughts about thinking, right? And so try it, you know, try it yourself. I have a vision board. I've read so many different motivational things, and that's the only thing like that was a commonality amongst what everybody said that stuck with me, is like, hell yeah, man, if I see that thing up there or whatever it may be every day, like you better believe that like I'm going to start operating as if I already have it, or I already have accomplished it, or whatever it may be. And so that's my version of like motivation for you guys is, you know, you're the only thing stopping you from where you already want to be is it's just in your head, right? And so put yourself there, right? And once you put yourself there, it becomes very clear what steps you need to take to get there, right? And so once you have extreme clarity into each step that you need to take, write them down, right? And then hold yourself accountable to them. And then it's just a matter of time, right? And so that's why I execute things so quickly. A lot of people have that I've come in contact with in the business world have mentioned that to me, like, well, you do things really fast. Because to me, your speed of execution is directly proportional to the clarity of your vision. You know what I mean? And so if I've already been to this place, I already know what it looks like. Why waste any time? Right? I want to see what it looks like done in real time. And so, and I have my list of the things that I need to do to get there. Right. So really the only thing that's separating me from my thoughts where I'm at now and ultimately where I want to be is just time. Right. And so I truly believe that, which is why you and I can be talking about something and a week later, it's done. It's finished and we're doing that thing. Whereas other people, it could take months and months and months because they're the bottleneck in the process. And they think it's, if you go too fast, you're going to make a mistake. But that's never been the case for me because I've spent more time thinking about it than almost anybody else has. So it's like having the blueprint right in front of me and I just have to check one item off at a time. Right. So if that works for any of you guys, I mean, try it for your next goal that you want to set. Like, hey, I want to incorporate this at my gym, or I want to I want to start this new class. Well, sit there and think for a good amount of time of every single thing that would need to get done to do that, right? And then put yourself in that class. Put yourself walking through the gym. We were talking about client experience, walk through the gym in your mind and go through every single little thing from who you're going to talk to if I need to throw something away, where's the closest garbage? Do the coaches greet me by the first name? Walk through your entire client experience and you'll be able to see if you're missing anything, right? And then put it on a list. And then the next thing you know, you got to get that thing done until it's completely perfect, right? And then next thing you know, like you're finished with it and you don't have to do it again. Right now you can move on to something else because you solved that problem. Right. So that's kind of my thing. And I do it every single day. And I haven't not done it in years. Right. And so I shouldn't say that. There'll be times where I would consider myself going out of momentum, and it's when I stop that process, right? So that's what I was talking about when I consider momentum. Momentum is like when you have like your perfect day, as an example. And there's a book by Craig Ballantyne who I recommend. I read it. It's called Perfect Day Formula, right? But it talks about this principle of like, if you had a perfect day, write it down. Like, what would that look like? Right? And then how many days can you do those for? And to me, that's momentum. And when you're doing that, you're waking up exactly when you want to, you're doing the most important and probably the thing that you don't want to do the most right in the morning to get it out of the way, to free your mind for the rest of the day. We call it like eating the frog. When you're visualizing, you're knocking out your entire list, things are going exactly how you want them to be going. When you are continually doing this and you at the end of the day, you look back and you're like, I got everything done. I did everything I was supposed to. Things went the way I thought they were going to go. I accomplished this, right? And tomorrow is just the same thing again and again and again. That's in momentum, right? And the goal is to stay in momentum, to first recognize that you are in this momentous period and to stay there as long as you can, because sometimes you'll slip out of momentum, right? And then you have to recognize that you're not in momentum anymore and to get out of that funk as soon as you can by jumpstarting it. And I have a few different ways that I like to jumpstart myself back into momentum because it's impossible to stay there forever. But to recognize when you're in it and when you're out of it, and then to get your 270 days out of the year, you want to be in momentum versus 12, where you're just really motivated over this one idea that you had and you try. And that's really the difference between people that have successful businesses and people that just are entrepreneurs, right? Is the grit and the ability to continually drive forward doing that thing day after day after day, long after the excitement of it wore off that they had when they first had the idea, right? They continually do it when the excitement's not there anymore. That's momentum, right? And the entrepreneurs, when that excitement stops, so does their action. And so that would be my advice. Hopefully it helps somebody that's listening.
Yeah, definitely. You gave me a lot. I had like 20 things I wanted to say, and I've lost like 10 of them.
Sorry, dude.
My version of the visualization, I do that as well in the morning, almost every single day. I think through my day and visualize a successful outcome. Another version of that I love is float tanks and long walks. Like I do a lot of rucking. I'm a go ruck guy. So I'll go walk 12 miles with the dogs through the hills. And during that time, I'm in flow. The funny thing, I don't even listen to music or podcasts almost ever when I do that. And as we discussed, I'm a big fan of those things. And the reason is I'm usually just kind of daydreaming about where I want to go and what I want to do and how to solve certain problems. So float tanks, walks. I love Wim Hof breathing. That's awesome. One question I wanted to have for you. I have found this to be true. By signing on to a new responsibility, I typically will grow to meet that and get benefits from that. And the thing I'm thinking about specifically, and something that a lot of people we talked about last week are doing, and that is when Joey and I committed, particularly you, Joey, committed to posting interesting and useful and insightful content to our free group, Low Stress, High Profit, right? And also when people are running free groups for their gyms, do you find that writing to your audience on a regular basis has leveled you up or put you into creative spaces? Because it certainly has for me.
Yeah, man, I never thought about it that way, but I think it has. I mean, when you are, whenever you're putting out content, it makes you think about these things in a very articulate way, right? Whereas a lot of the times you could be thinking about the same things, but if nobody has to consume it besides you, you really don't get granular enough with it to make it actionable. Whereas if you're whether it's a podcast or a YouTube or you're writing a blog or you're just posting in your Facebook group, like knowing that someone else is going to consume it, I think you get a lot more granular with it, which makes you think harder and it makes you level up because you're thinking harder about something. And like, wait, I'm rushing that post. Like they can't just do this and then it works. Like what exactly do they like? What am I trying to get across to them? And then you make it more clear in your own mind, right? And then you get better at it.
Yeah, I think you're like a walking example, and to some extent maybe me, but like you're like a walking example of like if you want to level up at something, start to teach it. Like anybody watching this training remembers when they went from being an athlete to a coach or a trainer or owning a gym, and like if you think back on that time, I would be really surprised if your own knowledge and even results didn't get supercharged just by the fact that you were teaching it. You're able to turn it around in so many different ways. I mean, I'm always thinking about a new and interesting way. I'm sure you're even doing more because you post more than I do. But like turning around, like how do I put a new spin on that? I know how I understand it, but how can I look at that from a different angle and kind of level up my understanding of it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially when I first started putting out content, people didn't understand it the way that I was trying to explain it. So it kind of forces you to change like your delivery, which forces you to change it. You look at it from a different perspective, right? So I think it's a very useful, which is why I think all gym owners, if they have a free group or if they don't have one, they should get one, because you'll start to spend a lot of time teaching your followers the tools of your trade, right? And you'll get so much better at being able to articulate them, which just makes you even more of an expert, right? Because you're spending a lot of time talking about, intermittent fasting or proper whatever. And if there's something you want to talk about and you don't feel like 100% confident to write a piece on it, you might go research it, right? And then now you have even more knowledge than you had before. So I 100% agree with it.
Yeah. So one last thing I wanted to add was we talked about visualization for that day. We talked about your perfect day and what that would look like. To put a little bit of a finer point on it, and it's something that I've told many of the people watching this, is like put yourself out to where your maybe not end goal would be 20 years from now, but let's say 3 or 2 to 5 years out from now, whatever you think is realistic, and think about you talk about knowing what you would do if you wanted to throw something away and you're standing in the lobby. Like, think about every detail of what your goal is. Do you want to be, do you want to end up in the seat that Joey's in? Do you want to end up on television? Do you want to end up owning a chain of locations? Like, what do those things look like? What does your life look like? And the phrase that really, it just slipped out one day, but the phrase that is currently written on my whiteboard is, nobody knows better how to get where you're going than the person that you want to become. And so there's no advice that Joey or I or any mentor can give you that's going to be better than what you actually want to do day to day and live. And so you're going to get more value just by learning who you are and where you want to be, and starting to look at your situation as temporary, not permanent. I don't care if you got 5 kids. I don't care if you got no money in the bank. I don't care what your situation is. It's temporary if you make it temporary, right?
Yeah.
Well, I think we had more. I was like, maybe this can be like a 30-minute conversation and we're just going to hop right off, but I could probably talk for another hour with you about this. I think this has been really, really great, Joey.
Yeah, me too, man. I think, and then we didn't add too much fluff, and it was enough tactics for everybody. So, if you guys are needing a little bit, if you're finding that you have all of the information you think in front of you, but you're missing that edge, rewatch this thing, man, because there might be some nuggets in here that might spark some interest for you. Maybe one that's happened to me a million times where, I'm like, oh, that one book that he said, I'm gonna go check that out. And that's all you needed to like ignite it and the spark the fire again, So by all means, go back through this. It will be located in the live replay vault after it sits in this group for a while.
All right, Joey.
Thanks for tuning in, guys. We'll see you next Thursday live in the group.
All right.